was really inspired by what I've heard in the last panel, and I was thinking during the conversation, because media was mentioned as a really important tool to bring up on the public agenda topics of common interest for us. And before getting here, we were talking. Andrei came to us and told us that yesterday was a conversation about activism, civism, media. How is it like a tool? Is it? I mean, how can we enable topics and engage people through media? And of course, the last days have shown in Romania that media had a great power in actually changing ministers and bringing topics, and we are talking as well about healthcare on the agenda. And I was wondering if we were to switch things on the positive side, and this is the first question that I'm going to break the ice a bit. How can we find a way maybe to transform a topic such as bringing back the doctors in Romania as a part of the public agenda, and maybe put our efforts to set the stage through all the tools that we have in the Romanian media, maybe a national campaign, or is it, and would that be really activism in media? And I will start with Sorana.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me here. Yeah, of course, we can turn that into a topic. We can turn that into a campaign. It's definitely worth trying. The first question I would ask is, who's going to do that? Which of the many media we now have in Romania would take that, take upon that responsibility? And because I don't know, Laura and you called it alternative media. I like to call it independent media, and right now I'm thinking about Decât Revistă, DOR, which by the way is back there, the latest issue. So you please help yourselves. We could try and bring that on the agenda, but we're not big enough and visible enough to turn it into a, I don't know, nationwide campaign. We have a niche audience. On the other hand, you've got the big commercial TV stations, which my guess is, and I'm pretty sure it's a fair guess, will never turn it into their #1 piece of news to start the evening news with, because it's not, I don't know, sexy enough. So then, yeah, you have to, someone has to do it, but the question is who's gonna take that responsibility and who's gonna pay for that? And is the media, is the audience ever willing to pay in order to get good quality content, get good quality coverage of this issue?
So I'm a bit more optimistic. Hello, nice to have you here. I believe that the public is really into media, and now things are shifting a lot. And you are witnessing actually the death of traditional media and the rebirth of a new model. So you are really seeing something new. When I was working at the beginning in a national newspaper, my editors were telling me, stop documenting so much, because people are not reading anymore. But what I could see was that the more I documented my stories, the bigger the public was. And I was discussing this with other colleagues of mine, young colleagues of mine over there. And one of them came up with the idea of building alternative media. So offering the public in-depth reporting, revealing structural, systemic issues, and not making compromises, basically. What happened was that the public was really into it. I mean, we had an overwhelming number of readers, and not only that readers read us, but they were also donating. The project is called Casa Jurnalistului, Casa Journalist, and it's one of the alternative or independent media platforms in Romania, together with Door Magazine, together with Rise Project, together with Think Outside the Box, for an instance. So there are many very good alternative media outlets. What struck me is that in these media outlets we were basically acting like journalists. We were reporting towards the public interest. And what happened and surprised me, unpleasant, I must admit, at the beginning, was that people started calling us activist media, which is, it's like we were doing the essence, the cornerstone of journalism, acting towards the public interest. So how could this be something activist? We were journalists. Well, I thought about it, and I think that the explanation lies in the fact that the media in Romania was so damaged, and its business model has fallen, so that people were understanding that media is not representing necessarily the public interest, but also private interest or political interest. So when these outlets came out and they were acting towards the public good and tackling stories of public interest, they were called activists. We are not activists, we're just journalists. We are doing our job. That's what we want to do.
I will go back to the initial question because some very important issues just stepped out of the conversation. Sorana told that, of course, we can do that. Media can do that, can put topics on the agenda, but first of all, who is going to do it and who is going to pay for it? And then you mentioned that these independent alternative media channels are starting to rise up and just have the power, but I have two questions for you. If we are in the look of another business model, how will you picture it? And the second question is, do you think that these independent media outlets, as you call them, are getting to be the new mass media thing in the near future? Because I think that in order to have the power to go with a message and, you know, just put it out there, it's not enough to have like niche and independent, but it's like a construction that it's going to be built out of the public sources and independent sources.
Okay, so just a bit of a context. It mostly started with the internet. So I get this question, is the internet killing or saving media? And the answer is yes, because it's doing both. It's changing media, the whole paradigm. Journalists today, we are relating different with the public. So it's not just a person staying in an ivory tower and releasing a message that is absorbed by the readers or by the audience. Now it's a constant interaction. And also, the internet shifted the business model, because now the content is available free source. And this is, in my view, this has to stay like this. I don't believe that people have to pay for content. I believe they can contribute through donations if they want to help a project stay alive. This is like an ideal situation. Nowhere so far in this world, all media is fighting to find a new business model, and it has not been found yet. The good part is that people show interest, and they are becoming more and more aware of what truly journalistic reporting is about. The bad part is that many good projects are not able to resist because of lack of financing. So it's a struggle now, but I'm optimistic. And I could see people donating, and I believe that they will do this more and more.
So crowdfunding would be one of the
actually we managed at Casa Journalists, we managed to find an individual business model. So myself, I worked for 2 years as a freelancer. I worked with foreign media outlets. I had scholarships, fellowships, and so I managed to develop my own projects using the money reinvested, or the money for these fellowships. What we have to do now is find models for collective outlets, not only for individuals. And we are planning to do so.
Sorana?
Well, my ideal business model for a media outlet would be one where the audience is paying for content, not necessarily once the product is already there, and he sees, I don't know, the title and maybe the headline, the 2 lines, and then decides if he wants to pay for it or not, but actually paying for content beforehand and trusting that you, Decât o Revistă, or you, Casa Jurnalistului, or you, whomever, will do a good job and will tell him in the end a good story, a well-documented, well-researched, thoroughly fact-checked story. And Laura was saying that everybody all over the world is still trying to find that. That's true. But there are some who've managed to do it so far. And we've got ProPublica in the US, which is an independent platform which is funded only by subscription and donations. The main difference is that in the US, there are these big donors, mainly trusts, who help you start from and give you like an advance for some years, that's something we definitely don't have here. But we also have their correspondent in the Netherlands. And in only 8 days, they managed to raise over €1 million to start a platform. They were all a bunch of well-established journalists in the Netherlands. They all quit their jobs. They wanted to start this new media platform, and in only 8 days, they got €1 million, and that's their funding model. And you pay for content, and it's working. So they do it, but you need the audience to do that. Again, in Romania, we're used to getting things for free, starting with the healthcare, education, and content. I mean, we download, right, everything. We don't really pay for content. We don't pay for information. We think it's a free commodity where it's not.
So it's also a cultural matter.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
We were discussing a bit about the role of the national television in a country, like putting topics on the agenda, informing, educating. And we all know the current situation of Romania's public television. How would you see like a decent way out? We were discussing in terms of financing as well, because there are huge problems here. And I believe that the voice of the media and the national television in a country, it's essential for it to stay healthy and keeping its fully fledged power to be close to the people. So how would you see like a decent solution? We were discussing and we were comparing the force that BBC has in the UK. How can we go slowly on that way and move towards that direction?
Well, Maria's is mainly asking me this question because I also work for TVR. I've been working there for 6 years now. I'm a senior journalist, and yeah, I'm sorry to say this, and I have to say this: TVR is failing at doing its job. TVR is failing at serving the public interest right now. For example, we haven't covered Collective the night it happened. We had news TV crews on the site. They were ready to report, they were ready to go live, but we didn't have the breaking news procedure. We didn't know who exactly you need to call in that overstaffed, overcrowded television. Who's the right person to call and ask, I need to go live on TV now because this big thing is going on. So you didn't have that, you didn't have Collective on TVR the whole night it happened. You only had it at 7 in the morning. So yeah, it's failing in that part. How can it get out of that hole it's now in? Well, it definitely needs
to die. First,
And replace it with what? Casa Jurnalistului? I'm sorry, it's not going to work. And it's not personal.
Yeah,
but it's not going to work.
It's not. You mentioned earlier ProPublica. ProPublica got a Pulitzer Prize. It's just an online platform. It got a Pulitzer Prize for investigative journalism, and it's built through donations, and most of their money comes through foundations in the US, because in the US you can see the journalism there is way more developed than it is in Europe. I have worked with several media outlets from Europe. I have been in the US, and I saw they really have quality journalism as it should be. I mean, they have these groups of journalists, and ProPublica is one of them. And yes, I believe that this kind of platforms will be the ones who will be doing journalism in the future, and the other ones will just be slowly dying as the public will come to realize what journalism is and how it can serve them. So my answer is yes, the alternative will take its place. I saw investigative journalism dying in front of my eyes at the national newspaper I worked for in 2008. So I started at România Liberă, and I was assigned in the investigative department. What happened very soon is that the economical crisis hit very hard, and so they were starting to fire people. The news office was shrinking a lot. And all journalists had a quota, like in the factory. You had to produce 8 articles per month. This, for an investigative journalist, is basically impossible. I mean, you can work at a story for half a year, 1 year, even years. Of course, you are doing more stories simultaneously, but 8 stories per month, it's something that would destroy any investigative journalist. And that's what happened, basically. So even myself, I managed to do the investigations. I did that independently.
We're talking here basically media, journalism. These are very abstract concepts, but in fact we are talking about people. And the truth is, the one that you pointed out as well, that in Romania for the past years, I know from my experience with journalists, that everybody kind of flew away from this profession that requires a lot of skills, a lot of abilities, and courage. I don't know if we're out of that crisis, let's call it so, and how do you see, because we're coming back, we're running around in circles, but we're going back to the business model. Maybe we need a shift somewhere, because I knew great journalists that turned to PR and started doing completely other things, maybe because they didn't fit
because
in.
PR pays, and PR is a 9-to-5 job, a very stressful job, a very demanding job, but PR pays. Whereas a job in România Liberă, where they cut staff, or a job in Decât or Revistă or Casa Jurnalistului, which are independent and self-funded, it doesn't pay.
At least it's risky. I couldn't. I mean, I know there are lots of great journalists inside media outlets that are acting very, very bad. I couldn't judge them because I myself, I don't have a family to support. I come from a family who can offer me a place to stay and a meal in case something goes really wrong and I have no funding, no money. I have a place to stay, so I am privileged. I couldn't ask another journalist to do as I did, like take this jump, this blind jump, and leave traditional media and start working independently for a while. But what I can tell you is that during the 2 years while I worked as an independent journalist, I earned much more money than I ever earned, and that I'm earning right now when I returned at Digi24, which I found a traditional media outlet which functions professionally, and where I was invited to develop an explanatory journalism section, which is like analysis and commentaries. So I thought it was great. I was always thinking I would do this in independent media. Unfortunately, I did not have the momentum. I was offered this and I went into it because I thought this was the best public interest at the moment that I could serve.
So basically independence, working on your own can be a solution to that.
It was for me. I mean, honestly, it paid very well. But of course, it was risky. I did not know if at the end of some fellowship if I will get some extra. But it always happened. I mean, I was very good working. Actually, financially speaking, it was the best period I had.
But also, and maybe that's something worth mentioning, speaking of good quality journalism, that's actually the business or individual business model in the UK, in the US. There are very, very few staff journalists. They all or most of them work freelance. They work on short-term contracts, which of course contributes to better performance. And it's a very, very competitive industry there. And getting your story pitched, getting your pitch for a film, for a documentary to even be, I don't know, seen by a Channel 4 commissioner or a BBC commissioner, that's something big. And you need to work to get there. So maybe, speaking of business models, the thing we have here with long-term contracts and jobs for life, especially in TVR, that doesn't really help when it comes to raising your standards and being competitive.
Yeah, and you were asking me, I did not answer one question. How will we reach the public? And this comes very often. People ask me, okay, so you have like 100,000 of views per article, but there's like 20 million people in Romania. How will you reach all the urban and not speaking of the rural areas? Well, first of all, I don't think we have to reach everybody. I think we are growing. I think we are growing well. But the fact is that, from my point of view, I'm much more interested on reaching the people, the groups of people who can shift things around them, who have the power to do good in society. So even if we do not reach everybody, but we reach this core of people, I'm pleased. I mean, for me, it is enough. Of course, ideally, we would reach everybody, but practically, that's basically impossible. So,
now we're going to get a little bit conceptual, because you said that you want to reach the people that can do good in society. So, coming back to the name of our panel with activist media, is there such a thing? Because we debated it and I want to share it with everybody.
Yeah, I don't think there's any such thing as activist media. You've either got activism and you've got media. There's nothing in between. Anything else is biased, is activism, is partisan media. I mean, having an active media, that's one thing. Having I don't know, rational media, that's something else. But an activist media, never. Because in my understanding, when you're an activist, you're biased, right? You're a strong supporter of something. And that's completely against the definition of media. Which is supposed to be, of course, I will not say neutral or objective, because there is no such thing. But media is supposed to be about fact-checking and researching and asking both sides and having both sides in the story and not being biased, where activism, it's not really like that. So no, I don't think there's any such thing as activist media.
Yeah, there's a kind of a fine line somehow. I really understand people who tell us that we are activists, because as I said previously, they were used with the media acting for itself, not for the public. So when you go and tackle stories, social stories, you do social investigations, you uncover things that affect the society and reveal systemic issues, then I can understand why people say that you are an activist, because you are trying to fix something. It appears like you are trying to fix something. You are acting different from traditional media, so they have to name you somehow, and they say you're activist media. Of course, this is dangerous.
The public is not that well educated itself, if it makes that confusion, that mistake.
Yeah, but it is understandable, and I believe that the public is really, I mean, it's a partner for journalists nowadays. The information that I got from the public just by posting something on Facebook or in the comments at my articles, it made me discover new stories or new angles or really develop myself. So the public is more and more critical. They are paying attention. They are not just waiting, tell me the news. They want you to show them, you know. And we are doing precisely this. When we are reporting something, we are always backed up by facts, and we are showing the facts. We have links, we have scanned documents, we had this all kind of data visualization tools. I myself learned some coding to be able to do them in my articles, and that's why I love online, and I don't really understand print anymore. Maybe up to a point, but the opportunities in the online, they are much more diverse, and so, yeah.
I was listening to you and I was thinking if maybe activism in media can be understood or perceived by the public as the resilience to follow an investigation and to actually change things in society.
That's the core definition of media. And yeah, I agreed with Laura when she says that the audience is not necessarily used to media acting in the public service, as public service, in the public interest. Because God knows we've had one too many examples of media outlets not doing what it's supposed to do. But that's the resilience and the perseverance of following a story up to its end and then fact-checking everything. That's what media is supposed to be. Independent or mass media or traditional or alternative or whatever you want to call it, that's media. That's what media should be.
Do you think we have such spotlight topics in Romania? We were discussing, except for the healthcare system that it's all over the place. I mean,
Well, for sure, at least in church, I'm pretty sure there are a couple of spotlight-like stories we could follow when it comes to the Orthodox Church and funding and spending. But yeah, stories are everywhere, right? Stories are everywhere. You just need to go find them and go tell them. And yeah, nowadays, a lot of the stories come from the public. As comments, as posts, as replies, as whatever. Or even as user-generated content.
Exactly, this is...
I would like to address the public. Spotlight is a movie, and if you haven't seen it, you should. It's really great. I mean, I really... When I watched it, I could feel, you know, it's exactly how it's happening when things are working the way they should work. When you have an editor who has a vision, who has, you know, you as a journalist, you can start discovering things and you want to write about them soon and just publish them because they are on your shoulders. Really, it's heavy carrying them for months and months. But it's crucial to have an editor who has the vision and says, no, we have to reveal the systemic issue, you know? So let's work on this more and more and go and find this and dig more. So you can see which is the success recipe of truly investigative journalism and what journalism should be, and that it is a work of a team, always. It's not just one journalist doing everything. It's impossible, basically.
Going back a bit to the impact of the internet on the way we journalists approach topics, because the speed of information and the amount of information generated is huge. Do you think that things are treated more superficially due to this speed of information today? And how can we find a way to counterbalance this superficiality?
Can I take it? Well, yeah, it's a buzz, and it's really difficult to grasp the big picture and to find the information. But what I could see as a journalist is that people are looking for articles or in-depth stories that reveal these things. So people want that kind of journalism that explains things and that shows all the sides of a story so they can form a picture. It is correct that the buzz formed, especially in news, it's really creating a blur and it's really confusing, and that's why we need platforms where public knows that they can find there the information, and that's what I'm also trying to do at Digi now. I'm trying to explain stories that are important and just explain them. This is explanatory journalism, basically. It does not exist in Romania, not in a constant way, but it's really, really needed to make some kind of an order. And
going back to your question, how do we fight the speed of internet? Well, resilience, again. Being resilient and doing the story right and not just acting and giving up to the need for speed and the need to be online then and there.
And Decât Revistă is exactly this kind of answer in Romania.
Yeah.
I would like to move a bit to questions, because I'm sure there will be some, but not before asking you, each one of you, if you had the power to do like 3 things to improve the quality of journalism in Romania and improve the quality of journalists' life, what would that be?
Well, probably I would make the people more aware of the importance. There are many people, but not enough. I mean, compared to the States, for example, here in Romania, things are pretty rough for independent media platforms. I would speed up the death of traditional media. Because some are starting to realize that the new order of things.
When you say traditional, what exactly do you refer to?
The media that we were accustomed with, that we grew with, the media that we can see broadcasted at a big level. And I believe that a solution would be some artificial intelligence, perhaps, to help us.
I would train journalists. I would train journalists, and I would focus on how important it is for acting journalists to be trained and to know the rules of the trade. It's not enough to be talented. It's more a craft than it's talent or anything else. So that's one thing I would do. I would train journalists, and I would try to train and educate the public to read more in general and to consume more media and more diverse media, so as to have an informed opinion when it comes to what an in-depth, good story is and what is not, and why the yellow the band that takes half of the screen, that's not news, and stop watching that. So.
Yeah, I believe this is the trend. And I was actually looking at some statistics. They are showing that long reads are increasingly, we don't have them in Romania, of course, but I was looking in the US. And for example, the tablet increased long reads. This was an effect of this technology. So people, when they go to bed with their tablet, they prefer reading an in-depth story, which are, you are aware, they are really long. So I'm pretty confident that these are the trends anyway.
Thank you. Questions? 3. 4.
We can hear you.
Yes.
Please.
We've been talking these days a lot about We've been talking these days about deaths of systems. Today there was a talk about the educational system and how maybe it's a good idea to let it collapse and build something new. And I would like to ask you if you feel from within the national television that there is a realistic chance that it might go through something like a collapse and revival of any kind in any way. And I would like to ask Laura if the values on which Casa Jurnalistului are built could be replicated, and if Casa Jurnalistului is interested in replicating those values in other parts of the country, if it's even geographically related anymore, since journalists travel so much that it might not matter. And if the small team that Casa Jurnalistului is can realistically be expected to grow in any kind of network way. Thank you.
It's not an easy question and it's not an easy answer. I think so. I'm not very optimistic when I say that, but I think so. Yeah, TVR can be changed, can be saved, and can take its place and do the job that it's supposed to do. But it needs good management that is accountable to the public and not to the parliament or to the majority in the parliament that has made that person the head of the TVR, because that's how the law is right now. So it needs a management that takes this decisions in the interest of the public, and it needs a very thorough performance system, maybe even as it is in, I don't know, private or commercial stations. And maybe it needs something that actually has been done before. Valentin Nicolau, who was one of the best managers TVR ever had, and who managed to put TVR in the big league, back in the big league. He basically let everybody off, or most of the people off, and then hired them back only on short-term contracts when they were needed and for the jobs that they were best prepared to do. And maybe that's, I don't know, that can be part of the solution. But not having, as right now, 2,500 staff all over the country doing not the best of jobs.
So to answer the question, we are struggling. Soon we will open a new program. This is the main idea, to be opened to people who want to write from outside of Bucharest. So it will be a residency. We are just planning, and I believe that the next week perhaps, or maybe this week, if we manage, we will launch a crowdfunding for this event and for this program. But we are just a small piece of the puzzle. We might disappear in a year or so, I don't know. The fact is, what I do think and I do believe, that no matter what happens to Casa Jurnalistului, the trends will be the same. If our institution dies, there will be others doing almost the same things. So I believe we cannot stop this trend, and we can only hope to be able to promote it and to change this face of journalism that has been wrecked in the past years, not only in Romania. I mean, bad things happened everywhere. So, yeah, we'll see.
I have the mic.
Okay.
So, question for both of you. I'm interested in how are you handling your multiple identities? So you are freelancers, you're part of independent platforms, but also part of more hierarchical institutions such as DG TVR. And what role does it play being, a brand name? I mean, both of you are established journalists that people follow because you write either on education or on domestic servitude, to just quote it. So how do you ethically manage your multiple hats?
It's really simple. Because the criteria is acting for the public interest. And when this is very, very clear, I choose to get involved in those projects that help me do this. And so it's very simple from my point of view.
Yeah, it's quite straightforward for me as well. First of all, I'd like to say that right now, actually since the beginning of the year, I've taken unpaid leave from TVR just to work for Decât Revistă and to manage this online section covering education. So I'm not one of those 2,500 who are not actually doing at work right now, but being here with you. Yeah, I'm lucky that TVR gave me that opportunity and said yes to my request of unpaid leave. I don't know if DG or any other commercial station would have done that. So maybe that's one advantage, let's say, that working for TVR is. But yeah, I don't see a particular conflict in my case between the two. Actually, I've some stories, and quite a few, I've started covering for Decât Revistă first, and then I had them done for TVR as well, because I was working for an hour-long current affairs program on TVR1. So actually, quite a few of the stories matched both channels, both media, and that helped a lot. And the audience is so different. I mean, I could bet that very few people who read Decât Revistă actually watch TVR and the other way around. So actually, it has helped me in that sense, reaching a wider audience with two very diverse media.
Next question.
Laura, you inspire us with very nice words and values, but I open Casa Jurnalistului and nothing happened in your Casa Jurnalistului. The traffic, according with special tools, is very modest, no share. The last material was the middle of May. Maybe it's some fake?
I think, are we sure that you are on the right?
Yeah, it's eu Casa Jurnalistului. The last material was yesterday, but the previous in the middle of the May.
Well, yeah, that's exactly how we are doing. Yeah. We don't have constant content. This is the way we work. Because we are not, so we do not have journalists. Everybody is working there on a voluntary basis. My article, the one that I published in February, it was about the confection industry. It went worldwide. So it appeared in Reuters, it appeared in Daily Mail, in CNBC.
But it's appeared in Reuters, but not appear in Mosh Yuan house.
But it did. It had over 150,000 views in the first days. I'm not sure what is now, but this is bigger than any traditional newspaper would bring you in terms of number of public. Recently, my colleagues had a campaign, and they are online. They are really. We reached yesterday. I was looking on the statistics. 500. There's half a million views and reach on Facebook with a campaign about the electoral campaign.
I would like to know the question.
Yeah, which was the question? Exactly, because we are not providing content daily. This is something that we cannot do. We are voluntarily working there. My project with the clothing industry, it took 1 year to do. So imagine if I would have to write daily something. This was exactly the hunt for daily publications is what killed journalism. I was mentioning that in Romania Liberă, when management asked journalists to offer 8 articles per month, each journalist, the investigative journalism died. We don't want to provide this massive content, but quality content. And this is why our public reads us. They're expecting this.
I think the gentleman that posed the question for sure had a point. Please develop on that, because it's interesting to see why.
Yes, but
I mean, where's the question heading?
My question was nothing happened in reality in your site. It's just one material in the month, and according with SEO instruments, which is very easy to check how many people seen these sites, or how it's big the traffic, how it's interested in the public, and also how many people share through social media. It's practically close to zero. From my point, technically speaking, if you check this site, it's nothing happens around this. I don't know, maybe some people share in Reuters and in other places, but in Romania, technically speaking, from SEO, from Google search, nothing happened with this page.
Well, that's interesting, and I thank you for your comments, because it is indeed a point of view. What I can tell you is that our platform has triggered topics inside media and inside the society. For example, fracking. For example, during the protest, the Roșia Montană protest, alternative media knew the biggest growth of all. Because what happened was that traditional media was not reporting in the first day of protests. You had, basically, you could see these huge crowds of people on the streets, but could not find news about it in the traditional media. And then all the traffic in alternative media outlets, it went up, it was huge. It was huge, and that was a point where people started to donate, at least for us. My story as well, it launched a lot of discussions at the ministry level. So I'm not very sure what do you mean by nothing. I mean, we could stay here a few hours and talk about the impacts.
Before passing to the next question, I think the interesting thing is to see that, of course, it's the difference of penetration of the traditional media and the novelty and the new channels that are starting to grow. And I think it's a growing phase. I mean, you cannot expect...
But it's big even compared to traditional media. I mean, you don't have hundreds of thousands of views per article in traditional media. The medium is 2,000 views. This is the medium view of an article in traditional media.
Please.
I'll try to loosen up a little bit the atmosphere and bring some optimism into the discussion. If you bear with me just a little second, so I would like to come back to, let's say, to the theme of this panel, communication in society, and I would like to give you a little bit of background of my experience, and because it will lead ultimately to a very simple question that I would like to ask Laura. Actually, I grew up in Intele Orman, where there's a baron there called Dragnea. I don't know if other people from abroad they don't know him. And actually, almost 10 years ago, when I finished high school, I wanted to become a politician, because that was the model that was sold in small communities like ours. So, for example, the media at that time wasn't able to produce some factual findings about the real methods on which this guy built his empire in the region, okay? So for most of the teenagers in our region, he was the ultimate, especially for those youngsters who were studying humanitarian studies in high school and so on and so forth. Dragnea and this type of personality of politician who is doing also good things for the society, he was acting as a role model, okay? So that's where, let's say, the investigation journalism comes in, all together with, let's say, national anti-corruption cases and so on and so forth, that it's the first phase of a transition. It brings the truth to the audience. And this is one side of the story. The other side is the educative one, right? So I have to teach the audience somehow, or to educate the society. And what DG is doing right now, and I'm very curious about the ratings and the statistics on how the Romanian people, what Romanian people are watching nowadays, how they shifted from traditional television towards, I don't know, from Măruță to Antena 3, then to DG. And because all the projects that I see at Digi24 are very educative, and I like them very much, like Proiectul Țară. You brought most of the most figures in the media, I don't know, like Moise Guran or other important figures. And I would like to know if DG managed to strike the balance between ethics and profitability, and if DG as a whole could be a sustainable business model in the nowadays context. Because that's why I'm asking about the numbers. I don't know if many people are watching Digi24 right now, as much as, for example, Antena 3.
Well, no, it's not a top traffic media platform, this I can tell you, but it is growing constantly. I don't have all the data related to the financial situation and all, so I don't have access in this kind of area. What I can tell you is that during the elections day, the traffic it was higher than the majority of, as far as I know. But the data is public, so anyone can check it. I don't know what will happen because I don't have control even in alternative media, just a bit of control. What can I say about this huge institution? We will see what happens. So far, it's good, it's professional. That's why when I left Digi24, I said it is the only TV station in Romania that I would go back to, which actually happened. So when I said yes and agreed to develop this project there, it was because I believed it was an ethical institution. But I cannot offer any guarantees. And you know, the thing is, it's interesting, we as journalists, okay, myself, we are trying just to do our job. This is what I'm doing. I'm doing my job. I want to do my job. Sometimes it happens that it triggers investigations that lead to prosecutions. I had this kind of events. Sometimes it triggers threats, live threats, or anonymous phone calls, or even visits at my house. My peers from the alternative media also encountered these things. Other times it triggers these international debates on Romanian topics. Sometimes we were even bothered by the way that international media took our stories and debated them, but nevertheless they got into the spotlight. So basically what we are mostly interested in doing is just doing our job, and the rest is up to authorities, it's up to people, it's up to, I mean, we cannot do everything.
Andrei?
It's the same question, but goes in different ways to the two panelists, because of hats you've kind of put on professionally. And I'm addressing the question to a public sector journalist or a public media journalist and to a private or independent media journalist. And the first question is, what are the stories that are not covered? And I'm asking you with those respective different hats, because I understand that it's not necessarily the same thing for a public TV station or radio to cover, and the same thing for an investigative small journalistic platform. Resources are different, time availability, you name it. The question, that's the first question. So what are the untold stories? What are the uncovered stories in Romania? And a second, and it does tie into what Mr. Sturza raised earlier, is what's in a digital model, we're hooked on numbers. we look at how many people read that. How can we transform that into a qualitative instrument? Who are the people that read us? Who else do they have access to? Maybe 10 people read my article on a blog, but if it gets retweeted 1,000 times or 10,000 times, it's one thing. But if one specific voice is retweeting or relinking that story, has a different weight. And how do you figure that in your daily work?
Well, what are the untold stories when it comes to public service media? I'd say education-related stories. That's my topic of interest, that's for sure, and that's what I'm doing at Decât Revistă. So yeah, education is not sexy at all, and from a TV journalist perspective, I can understand why education is so little on screen, because it's very difficult to illustrate. I mean, what do you show? Television is pictures, television is moving images. How much will any of you look at a child who's, I don't know, writing something in his textbook, or some teacher in front of the class? How long can you watch that? How long can you show that until somebody else switches TV? Nevertheless, going back to what the public service media is supposed to do, and resilience, those stories should still be on TV. Yeah, and you don't see them on TV. All year long, TVR has had every Tuesday morning at 10 a.m., who of you is at home at 10 a.m., a weekly live 1-hour talk show on education, covering education. I mean, why? That's bad programming, no matter how you call it. So education is definitely not there, and it should be. Like in-depth, thoroughly researched education-related topics, and not just, I don't know, this portrait of this teacher who's a model in his community. Those are very, very well, and they should be on TV. But going back to untold stories and financing and bad management of schools, and the fact that for 8 years, there was no public competition for the head of public schools. They were just appointed year after year after year. And I've met heads of schools answering the phone saying, "Yes, boss." And the boss on the other hand was, on the other side was the mayor. How can you, as a head of a school, answer, "Yes, boss"? I mean, those are the stories I would like to see on TVR, unfortunately. Yeah, and how? So basically, how do you reach the audience that matters, and that can spread the word even further and reach audiences that you cannot reach directly?
Public pressure.
In what way?
I mean, if the public shifts to this kind of stories and prefers them, it's an incentive. Of course, there's always going to be both of them. Come on, like look at BuzzFeed, okay? They're doing really good investigative journalism, but they're also doing puppies and silly stories. So they can coexist. There's not an issue. You don't have to be some elitistic guys saying, no, this is like how media, and these are the stories, and this is the recipe. There's no such thing. I mean, it's important that journalists do their job, and it's important that people understand, and they do understand, more and more people, what is the quality journalism and the one that promotes good in society, eventually. I think also regarding the topics, my answer would be that it's not which topics, but how. How are you handling the topics you are choosing to get involved in? If you choose whatever story and you do it as you should do it as a journalist, it's good from my point of view. I mean, chapeau, it's perfect. If you are just chasing after stories that you think would bring many readers or viewers, and you just do them in some poor manner, this is the problem. It's not that the topic, but how you treat the topic.
Going back just to make a short comment to your question, I think it's a matter of targeting. And there are instruments to do that, to increase readership. Maybe, I don't know, but that can be a solution in order to find educated people. I mean, it's for profiling and targeting the information so that they can spread it on their own behalf. And of course, the quality of the content should be reflected in the readership. It's not always this way, but I think targeting can be a solution.
Yeah, but
to that.
as I told you, when we were working in a national newspaper and we were writing these in-depth stories, we had public. It was above average, and sometimes it was even huge. So this showed us that the public is out there and they are hungry for this kind of stories, which at that point were less than today. And the fact that even Door has a lot of readers, we have a lot of readers. This is a good sign.
I'm not very fond of the word even, but let's... both numbers and qualitative audience are important, of course. I'd say, at least when it comes to education, I need to go back to education always. I think I would go for numbers first, because it's the mass audience that needs to hear the untold stories in education, because the qualitative audience, people like you here, know them or have a more critical, analytical understanding of everything that's going on in education, and have a deeper understanding, have a deeper background, have traveled abroad, have lived abroad. They know how things should be, and they can easily compare what's going on in public schools in Romania to what's going on in public schools in, I don't know, Brussels, for example. Whereas when it comes to the average viewer or reader, they don't have that reference. So I would like to see my stories on education seen and read by a lot of people, and not necessarily by, I don't know, only the counselor of the Prime Minister of Ligia Deca in Cotroceni. They know them, they're there, we meet constantly.
Well, my even was because you were pessimistic. You were saying that and that's what even you have.
That's why the two of you are here, just to counterbalance.
Yeah.
I think that this would be the last question that we're going to take.
I have the mic.
Okay, you have it.
Hi. Well, thank you for this fascinating expose, and I was surprised that none of you, when you were asked about the 3 things that you would do, said, I would pay more the journalists. And I wonder why. Are they paid enough? Because I know that journalists, that investigative journalists that do 2 stories per year get a salary for a year in the States, right? So I wonder about that. I don't know. And the second question maybe is naive, but how do you think, because we talk society and communication, how do you think that politician interests that are there to represent the public became contradictory to the interest of the public, and we need media?
Because of money?
Well, yeah, I'm naive, definitely. And how that can be repaired in the case of Romanian television.
Thank you.
Well, money. Of course, money is important, but I'd say there are other priorities when it comes to good quality media in Romania, and even if you paid better money to acting journalists right now in Romania, that doesn't automatically and necessarily mean that the quality of their work will increase. No, that's why I'd say train them first, and then pay them so they don't go into PR. So yeah, and also money, I don't know, it's something so not important. When you actually want to do a story, you will do it, even if you pay with your own money. And politicians, and yeah, of course, it's money and public interest and power. I mean, money, power corrupts, right? It's power that makes them change sides. And when it comes to TVR and how you make TVR accountable to the public, well, I'd say you would have to start with changing the law, with changing the governing law of how TVR works right now. Because right now the TVR is under the control and supervision of the parliament. And whenever the parliament is not happy with your work, they just give a no confidence vote in the parliament on your, when analyzing your annual report for the previous year, and that automatically leads to a new administrative board and the new head of TVR, which are appointed by the parliament, by the presidency, by the government, and so on and so forth.
Thank you. Briefly.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I just wanted for you to take the last part, if we need to fail more into media in Romania, just to go back to the first question. Do we need to fail more in order to get better? That was the question, right? More or less.
I don't know. So I just wanted to tell you, of course money is needed. I mean, we are not monks, okay? As I said previously, I found myself privileged because I had a house to stay in, I had food, and in case I went out of money for good, I could have a support. But not all journalists and not all people can afford this. And this is something that it's obvious, money is needed. How much money? This is another discussion, and the answer is not very much money. Actually, I want to tell you something. At the beginning, in Casa Journalist, I heard these people, they were saying, you are paid by the secret services. And I was like, why? Because you couldn't do so much reporting and so in depth with so little money as you say you have. Oh, well, we can, but we cannot do this all our lives. I don't have a child to support. I don't have a family to support. I don't have an elder to support. But others have, and this is not possible. I mean, you cannot do your job so in depth and chase the stories till the end if you have nothing in your stomach. This is for sure. So I don't want to be idealistic and say the story matters, and yeah, up to a point. But at some point, I cannot judge anybody who says, okay, it's enough for me. Now I'm going to have to support myself and my family, and I'm going into PR. That's okay. It is okay. But as long as you do journalism, do journalism. And when you do PR, or when you go and work, whatever you do, just do your job as you should be and correctly.
And on that note, I would like to thank you both for a very inspiring talk today. And thank you for the questions. And I think we're moving to the next discussion. Thank you.